Mike's camera's off.
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
All right, we're live in 5, 4, 3.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the White Collar Therapy and Leadership Show. My name is Robb Holman. I'm joined together today with co-hosts Ryan Girardi and Mike Phillips. Now, this is being recorded and we are going live on President's Day. So I just want to say happy President's Day, as well as we are in the month of February, which happens to be Black History Month. And so we are thrilled that you joined with us live or you're listening to this recording. White Collar Therapy is for leaders and aspiring leaders just looking to lead more from the inside out. And so we're thrilled that you joined with us yet again today. And we have a special topic at hand, which we're going to do a deeper dive in just a few minutes. So hang on. And it has to do with team dynamics for a dynamic team. We are going to really talk about and have a thought-provoking conversation surrounding unity in diversity. So with no further ado, Ryan, Mike, great to hang with you guys. And in this virtual coffee shop in 3 different locations in the United States of America on President's Day. Mike, how you doing? We're coming off a fresh weekend and you look good, my brother. For those that are listening to the podcast, you do look good, I must say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As do you guys.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Thank you guys for having me on. This is always such a fun show and really good conversation. And coming off a fun weekend, we were talking beforehand a little bit. I'm doing a little bit of online gaming, but there's a whole lot for me as far as leadership and business content. There's a lot of things that are manifesting themselves in the physical world. So that, as you know, Rob, that takes a lot of time. Ryan, I know, I mean, he's doing so much in IRL, right? In real life that he's traveling and doing everything else. Where are you broadcasting from, Ryan?
Believe it or not, I'm at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, if that's not obvious. And it's 7 in the morning, 7:30. So I found a place along called the District where you start walking out of the casino. And so most of the restaurants are closed. And so I found a place that was roped off and said, do not enter. You will be escorted out of the casino. So I hopped the fence and hopefully I'm nice and discreet and can keep the stream alive.
It's Vegas. So, and they're like, you're like, oh, if anyone comes along, you're behind the do not enter thing. Be like, hey, we're recording. You can't come in here right now.
I'll be all official. I like that idea.
I'm here to help.
You rule breaker, I tell you, I always say this, you're such a maverick.
How about you, Rob? What's lighting up the world for you right now, man?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, the kids are off today. And so my wife has them in swim. My youngest is 4 years old in swim lessons at the local YMCA. And my 2 other kids that are off from elementary school are joining with my family. And so after that, the zoo will come home after this broadcast.
The zoo. What animal are you, Rob?
Yeah. Now that could make for a very interesting conversation. Being as tall as I am, being 6'4.5".
Yeah, giraffe. Giraffe came to mind first for me.
Yeah, there you go.
I used to have a manager that always asked that. Like when he was doing interviews, he was like, if you were in the jungle, what sort of animal would you be? And there are interesting answers. So I'm sorry to interrupt, man.
No, not at all. We're coming off a weekend. We had some really good friends joining us from Cincinnati, Ohio area. They were in Friday and they left this morning. We had a host home for them, but good friends from that area, leaders. And as you guys know, I'm a part of a nonprofit organization and a nonprofit that basically helps get simple communities and simple churches established and off and running all around the world. And there are a couple that just amazing hearts, amazing minds. And they wanted to come in for a time of encouragement and inspiration and some mentoring and coaching. But trust me, I've told them this explicitly. I learned so much more when I'm ever around them than hopefully they gain from me, but isn't that true? I mean, if we just begin to posture ourselves more and more and more with that learner's heart, and whether it's through our younger children, our children, our neighbors, those that, have higher level of education than we do, lower level of education. And man, doesn't that feed into the topic at hand today? I mean, I know,
sure
Mike,
does.
there's something on your heart, something we want to do a deeper dive in that has to do with diversity. But I've just learned, and I want to see if you guys have learned the same thing. When you do posture yourself in that way and bathe yourself in humility, now you can learn from anyone at any time in any place. And yeah, you tap in and there's a connection with all humanity that would never be there otherwise. It's a powerful thing. What do you say, Mike?
I absolutely agree. And I'm going to lead off with the quote from your book here, actually, as we're talking about, the title we're talking about team dynamics for dynamic team, and the quote, and I'm going to tie this together to a couple things because I don't want to lose my thought, because you guys know I do that quickly. But the quote here from Stephen Covey is, strength lies in differences, not in similarities. And that's the way you lead off the chapter. And one of the things, as you're talking about having a learner's heart and where we can learn from other people, I think it is really, really important to, and you said it here, just have the humility. Like, I learned so much from my kids. If you can go, one of the things that I find just absolutely fantastic is for our children, for anyone who's not a parent, if you're an aunt or an uncle, the ability of children's imaginations to transport us as adults back in time to where we were and put us in that place of learning, I think is just really amazing. And I know that's kind of a tangent, if you will, but
no.
I mean, or it could be, but I mean, I think that's one of those things that when it comes to perspective and having being able to accept other people's perspective and their views, it's one of those, when you get into a position for learning, you really have to transport yourself to, well, what is it that they're thinking? Why are they seeing that? And one of the only ways you're able to do that is if you ask questions and then you listen really well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mike. And I'd love to get you guys your thoughts on this. I bring this up out in that chapter that you're referring to in All In. Mm-hmm. Why is it that the average person, the average leader, you name it, we just tend to gravitate towards people that look like us, sound like us, have a similar level of education? It's almost like this gravitational pull. It's not saying we're out to do it, strategically, intentionally, or whatever, but we find ourselves hanging out with people, hiring people that, I don't know, kind of think like us. They sound like us. Is that to validate our own opinions and our own thoughts because everyone loves to be validated? I mean, how do you guys see it?
I think it's because it's easy. It's what we default to. It takes more work to be able to listen to someone and learn their perspective. It takes more work. Secondly, one is, I think it's something we're comfortable with. If we're good at something, we can gauge if somebody else is good at that same thing. And if they're good at that same thing, naturally, psychologically, we like them, right? Yeah. And so secondly, I think it's laziness. In one of my podcasts we talked about on a previous show, I think it takes more work for us as humans to get to at least an average level of performing something, so you can see if that's something you like. Well, do I like you? Am I good at this? It takes more work for us as individuals. So some of it, and this may be really off base to say, but I think some of it as leaders, it's laziness. If you're not willing to,
let's call it what it is, Mike. Let's call it what it is.
If you're not willing to get to a level to understand somebody else, that's you, not them.
Yeah. And Ryan, love to hear your thoughts on this, but I have done, research, as you guys know, on the brain and a lot of neuroscience and just different things, right? Mm-hmm. And the brain does like to go on autopilot. The brain does not like to work. And so what I mean is, so all of a sudden we find ourselves with people that sound like us and, think similarly to us, or we read books. We love reading books that kind of, this is what's on my heart. I'm passionate about it. It's kind of my stream that I swim in. And we do that because the brain doesn't like to work. It loves to remain on that autopilot, just subconsciously, so all of a sudden, if we start swimming upstream in the name of diversity and diversity of thought and bring different people that sound different, look different, and all of a sudden now that can be harder work, but the payoff of unity in diversity in team peak performance is amazing. I mean, Ryan, what goes through your mind when we're talking about this?
So, as we addressed early on, diversity isn't just about one thing. It's not just about race. It's not just about color, personality types, dispositions, character, things like that. And I'm not a psychologist, but when I observe children, they do not have natural barriers of what's the opposite of diversity? I don't know what the opposite of diversity, but they don't have those natural barriers. Now, if they're in an environment that teaches them to have those barriers, you will grow up with those barriers.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in an environment that doesn't, then you'll grow up to have that diversity. So a lot of it has to do, I think, we're not naturally that way. We're not naturally racist or segregated, if you will, but we can become that way. So to your point, Mike, it is harder to go against the grain of yourself. It's easier. I think it's more about synergy, right? You want to feel comfortable with someone, feel like you can trust someone, and familiarity can obviously maybe give you the illusion that you can, which might not always be true.
Yeah.
So when I think of diversity, I have a personal situation that has floored me recently. Floored me. And I want to share it and bring it up because I want to address it.
Yeah,
so,
please. I want to know now. He's like, segue here's
Ryan. Do you know what would be even better is just to say, and you're going to have to wait until the next episode of White Collar Therapy.
I thought about that. I'm like, I really want to share something, but
tune in next time.
And I find myself, I know where I stand politically, and I'm relatively in the middle, leaning right. And I know that, and I'm honest with myself about that. I love talking with people that have opposing viewpoints. I enjoy it because I like the challenge of understanding where they're coming from. But I have a recent situation where somebody disagrees so much with my political viewpoints, but he doesn't actually understand my political. He's drawn a conclusion, right? To the point where, while he thinks he represents tolerance and diversity, what he's done is completely reject where I stand. And I don't know how to break through that barrier. You can't attack somebody and say, you're being a hypocrite. You can't do it because I'm stuck there.
They shut down immediately.
Yeah.
The moment, because people feel like you're attacking their integrity or their character. And if they believe, regardless of what the beliefs are, whether we say they're right or wrong, if they believe that they're morally upright, then immediately that gets people defensive and they shut down.
Yeah.
So that is tough.
And what I've learned, and I've listened to a podcast recently on this, is that every human being has two modes, rational and emotional. And when you get into emotional mode, you are a different person. You make decisions and say things that when you come out of that emotional state, you're like, I did that? I wouldn't normally do that, right? Mm-hmm. So, we definitely have those two modes. And with things like politics and religion, divisive subjects, we hunker down on our belief system, and that makes us emotional and irrational.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think, great point, Ryan. It's one thing, and I do want to do a deeper dive in this. It's one thing to understand. I think a majority, if not a vast majority of working professionals and leaders would say, diversity is really good when we have people that think differently and come from different cultural backgrounds and different, like obviously just diversity and all that diversity can bring with it, I think is good. We need more of that. It sounds good and everything. So it's one thing to believe it conceptually and be on board with it conceptually. It's a whole other thing experientially, because what we're even bringing up is, okay, so humble yourself. You may not always be right. It might be true to you and with these deep convictions, but what's true to you, another person's viewpoint or where they're coming from is true to them and for them. So all of a sudden now you bring these deep level of convictions based on, again, life experience, cultural experience, personality, the list goes on, and you put them around a table to discuss a common goal or an aspiration, a creative idea, whatever the case may be. And everyone's chiming in almost as though they're right. Who at the end of the day is right? And how do you actually have a meaningful conversation? How do you facilitate a meaningful conversation of all these different, potentially strong personalities and strong backgrounds and strong mixture of people, and try to bring a level of decency, honor, respect, and as a leader saying, and we're all heading in, we're all on the same ship, we're all on the same bus, and we're all heading in the same direction together. How do you do that, you guys, especially with how divisive our culture can be in politics and education and all these different, how do we do that? And let's get practical. What have you guys found that works? Now, again, I want to just say we are three white men, three middle-aged, I don't want to age us too much, but three middle-aged white men having this conversation. So I think in an ideal situation, we'd have women, we'd have people of color, we'd have different people all involved in this conversation, just make up different aspects and different walks of life and different ways of thinking. But it is what it is in today's episode of White Collar Therapy Leadership Show. So with that being said, what have you found that works?
Here, I'll share an experience. So one of the interesting things, so in my day job and in the auto dealership, I currently manage and have that report to me all women, 100% women. And in the position that I'm in, I've always, which as Ryan knows too, like in the auto industry, it is a more male dominated industry, so when we're talking about diversity, and I have a very diverse as far as ethnicity group of women that work for me. And certain same thing with age. I think the age is from anywhere from 22 to 47. It's 9 different women. Yeah, but it is all women right now. And so this may not be the best segue to diversity because you're like, Mike, it's all women. Wait, that's not diverse. But I've always ended up with different groups of people. And I've had people that have said, well, how do you manage? Like they have to think differently than you. One of the things that I find works really well is one, in group dynamics, like for training, for example, you have everybody participate on something that there is commonality with. So, so often, like if you're immediately leading off with, like you're talking about religion and politics, and not that you would necessarily do that in business, but if you allow them or yourself to lock in on those things, then it automatically is a divisive culture. It divides people. However, if you find something that is a common goal, whether it's results or something that is not, hey, here's our processes. Processes don't discriminate, right? Here's the process. And if you get something that is one piece that everybody can get behind and be headed in the same direction, I think that helps with some of the other pieces that could divide, because they'll say, well, I know they're human. And when we were training on this, we shared the same viewpoint.
Yeah.
So it allows them to hear other viewpoints, but again, that takes having a team dynamic. It takes having people on the same team. So like in Ryan's situation, where if it's someone else that they don't operate regularly on the same team as him, it may be an outside relationship or whatnot. I think that can be tougher, but same deal. Ryan, look for what's the common ground? What's the common goal? What do you both synergize on that you see the same? Because if it reminds that other person that you're still human and there are some things that we see the same, and that's okay. Maybe that brings them back to a place where they can be humble and listen.
In my experience, no matter what the difference is in any sort of ideal or belief system or point of view, there's always a limit where you don't cross. So for example, murder is the ultimate thing. If you knew that a friend of yours was murdering people, you would probably have a hard time remaining his friend. You're like, I just can't be in this friendship.
It'd be more than that.
Yeah. So, you have to put your foot down, right? You have to draw a line. And I think that line, it's just different for everybody. And your inability to be accepting of other people's belief systems and viewpoints is you've reached that line that you won't cross, right? And you're maxed out. And you, like exercise, you have to develop a new muscle to work through that. And I think that's why it's hard.
I hear you. I do want to go back. Good point. I do want to go back to the previous episode where we talked about embracing the story. And this will feed right into my inside out leadership heart philosophy that the white collar therapy and leadership community knows very well. Is I think we got to tap into humanity here. I think when we talk about diversity, are we connecting with team members more as human beings first? and working professionals second. Because if we get to hear their story and new aspects of their story, so to speak, almost every time that we get together with them, and you have to be intentional and consistent with this with your one-to-one meetings, with your team meetings, or are we just diving right into trying to solve the problem together as a team? Because that's the temptation. Let's just get right into the weeds. And all of a sudden there's tension and there's passion and all these different things. Things are said the wrong way and blah, 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 blah. Or we taking a step back and all of a sudden getting to know one another. Again, it gets back to, Mike, what you said, that common ground. And I think if we can realize and honor one another as human beings first and foremost, with a heart that beats, regardless of the poor decisions that we've all made at different times, and we're committed to get to know one another as humans first and build off of that each and every single time we get together. And it could be as simple as this. Every time you do a one-to-one with someone, every time you have a team meeting, it doesn't have to be long. It could just take a couple minutes. It could take a minute. What's something about that individual that you never knew before? And just by asking a simple question or letting them in to an aspect of your life that they never previously knew.
That's good.
And now we're like, okay, this is common. We are human beings. We live in this world together. And in that, I think we find out we ultimately have more in common than we even think. So when tension-filled conversations come up and out, and they will,
sure,
we're brought back, and that anchors us in relationship. And so I just want to mention that to you guys, because that is an inside kind of a thing that in time works itself out, as opposed to outside kind of things that were, well, I just need to do this more, at the meeting. I need to become a better listener just for listening's sake, just so I can honor them,
right. Because they said so.
Because they said so, which that's an outside thing trying to get in. I'm all about, and you guys know, in communication, I'm all about active listening. Mm-hmm. But what even supersedes that's great, that is the foundation of human to human connection. And when we tap into that, then when we are intentional with active listening, it becomes easier. It becomes easier, more of who we are, as opposed to something that we're merely doing to try to get the attention of people around us, or whatever the case may be. So I don't know, thoughts with that as we come to a close in the next few minutes?
I do. I think when you're in a leadership role, Mike, you're in a leadership role, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And as a leader, you have to be committed to yourself and committed to the idea of diversity, because no matter the situation, you're going to encounter scenarios where you've reached that threshold, right? And I think you have to have a protocol as a leader. You have to have a protocol. And then you have to work through that and be committed to it. When you're in an environment where maybe you're subject to other leaders, like your subordinates, mm-hmm. right? They're in the same boat. If they don't think of things like, rationality and emotional thought and diversity and things like that, then they're going to always be deconstructive, no matter who their leader is. Mm-hmm. So as a leader, maybe you have a mentoring, you have to be able to identify that and have some sort of coaching program or mentorship to equip people with the skills that they need to work through situations.
Yeah.
I have two quick thoughts as you're bringing that up. It's interesting because there's a couple of the ladies that work for me that have some strong political views. And just as and sometimes I don't even realize this, but I think one of the things that has worked in that environment is when they're sharing a view, because there are some that they're way over here and I'm way over here. And it's like, but we'll get into those discussions because you're in the same environment with everybody in business and so forth. And one of the things that I realize, and Ryan, as you were just talking now, a lot of times when someone shares whatever their view is, instead, especially as a leader, if you're wanting to create that environment and that culture, rather than rebutting by sharing your own view, just simply take it in and say, well, that's really an interesting perspective. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you agree or disagree with it, but it allows them to get their whole thought out. And then, separate conversation at a later time, you can certainly share your perspective, but it doesn't mean somebody's right or wrong. And on the perspective thing, what it made me think of, Rob, and I know we're kind of coming to the tail end here, but I think in in that same chapter, and I would have to look it back up. It's been a little bit since I read it, but you were talking about perspective and the glasses. You unloaded, I think, if I remember, you unload. And so for anyone who doesn't know this, like when you unload the dishwasher, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And when we're talking about perspective, and not to downplay it, but you can keep it on something a really simple level like that of you unloaded the dishes and put them right side up, like in the cabinet, right? Mm-hmm. And then your wife would come in behind you and flip them the other direction. And I don't remember what the outcome was, like why she did that. But I think one of the things that had to come to the natural conclusion is you had to say, oh, well, that's an interesting perspective. Why are you doing it that way?
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's going to drive her insane that you're unloading in one direction, and it's going to drive you insane that you're saying, hey, I'm not doing this right. And so something so simple, put into the grander scheme in business and so forth, if you just simply ask that question, well, hey, why are you unloading the glasses that way?
Yeah.
It allows somebody to get the thought off of their mind and know that you're genuine in wanting to know the answer.
I love that. And we could have fun with this if time allowed, whether it's the glasses, unloading the glasses from the dishwasher, the toilet roll, toilet paper from the roll.
There's a right way and a wrong way, Rob.
There definitely is.
You grab it off the top or the bottom. I mean, we could have a lot of fun with this, but point well taken. And it is in that chapter. I do want to share this. There's so much more to be said with team dynamics for a dynamic team and how to actually have unity in diversity. But again, I encourage people, if you have not listened to the previous episode, Embracing the Story, as it relates to human connection, I want to encourage you to listen to that. For those of you, some of you have listened to it, go back and listen to it again in light of our conversation together today. And I also encourage where we're heading with White Collar Therapy and Leadership Show. Next episode, we're actually going to be talking about honor, and it feeds really nicely into this conversation too as we continue the dialogue. So you won't want to miss it there. Ryan, I want to turn to you for any housekeeping items on the White Collar Therapy and Leadership Show for those that are viewing and listening to the podcast.
Sure. Thanks, Rob. So on the blog, we put up a post given an idea of what the next focus is going to be, who's going to be on it. So that's what you can see here. There is the live stream is embedded, so you'll always be able to watch that. Now, if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, then you'll also get a copy of that link as well. So encourage you to subscribe to both. And one thing you can do is look in here, there's a link to sign up. And if you sign up with White Collar Therapy, that'll basically identify you in our system as someone of interest in the program. We have our group coaching season finale on March 30th. So all 5 of us are going to be on, and we're making that episode basically like a live webinar, and we invite fans and attendees to be a part of that experience with us. So you have to be registered to do that. So I encourage you to do that go to whitecollartherapy.com and go ahead and register. And Rob, I'll let you speak to some of the other benefits. You'll get access, or you'll basically get a copy of Rob's Boundaries Decision Tree, and you'll also get a link to Rob's Inside Out Leadership Academy, where if you enter the promo code WCT19, you'll be able to get about 40% off?
60% off. I mean, the value of the course is $995, and it's taken all the way down to $395 for the White Collar Therapy community. And I've got to share this. It's for a person, an aspiring leader, a seasoned leader that's really committed to growing in their leadership ability, but more from the inside out. And so it's 35 plus course hours. There's interactive exercises and keynote talks I've given. And it is a way to, directly interact with my inside out leadership principles. 3 big deliverables coming out of the course. And so you won't want to miss them. One is discovering your personal why. Why do you exist on the planet? The second is creating your own personal vision plan for the next 12 months. And then thirdly, for your company or your department in which you lead, a vision plan for those that you have sphere of influence in your life. And so just really want to encourage you. It's a free first session of the course. If you just want to taste of it a little bit more, feel free to do so. But again, for all White Collar Therapy community members, it is 60% off. So take advantage of that.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think we are good to go.
I think you're right. And I just really appreciate the community at large, and we're only as strong as you guys help make the community. So we invite your participation in social media, on the Facebook event group, on, just find us one way, shape, or form. The White Collar, you can go to whitecollartherapy.com, all the information that you need, and connect with Mike, myself, Ryan, Sherry, Terry, all the different co-hosts. We'll make ourselves accessible to you. And so thank you for your participation in this. And I got to say, you guys, Mike and Ryan, I just love hanging with you guys. You guys make it enjoyable. You make it fun. I always learn so much from you. And Ryan, you being in Vegas, for those that are watching the live stream, I mean, for the city that never sleeps, I'm seeing more and more people walk by you with every moment now.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. 7 a.m. This place is moving.
Man, so you guys are the best. I look forward to the next time. And thank you once again, everyone. And we look forward to you tuning in next show in just a couple of weeks. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.